for this. All right, another episode of Talk to Me Africa is here. I want to say thank you so much to Meiling, who's joining me from Australia, where it is around 10:03 a.m. on Saturday morning, and I'm still here on Friday night. You woke up and the first thing you're doing is talk to me. I really love that. Thank you, Meiling.
Oh, thank you, Mabel. It is my privilege to be on your show here and your podcast. So thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. I mean, I'm so honored. I mean, you woke up thinking about the show, you got ready, made yourself so beautiful to be here. Thank you. I really appreciate it. I'm going to start by introducing my guests to my audience. Simple name, Mailing. You are a trader, right? So you say
Yes.
you are a trader. That's correct. You're a trader.
Yes.
You're a trader mindset coach.
Mm-hmm.
And what you do is that you used to be an optometrist, then you pivoted because you got tired of fighting battles with the industry in Australia, and an industry which you say cares nothing for its patients. Welcome to America as well. People have been talking about this industry forever. Anyway, and you say that it was hard for you to tell your Asian parents about your decision to leave a lucrative and stable job where they had bragging rights. That hit the nail on me. Like, yes, I know what the bragging rights are, right? My daughter's an optometrist. Yeah, she is a lawyer. That's a thing that we have in an African community too. So it's so good to know that you also have that. But now you say you are in charge of your money and you are happier than you have ever been.
In charge
What?
of my money, in charge of my decisions,
Your
in charge
time?
of my direction where my life is going,
Mm-hmm.
versus what society, the country, your parents, your relatives tell you that you ought to be doing.
Mm-hmm.
It is a freedom that I never imagined, and I'm so much happier for it.
How long have you been doing this trading?
I think I've been doing it for about 3, 4 years now, but I pivoted from optometry longer than that. So my path wasn't a straight, direct path. It was
Mm-hmm.
winding, right? As life
Mm-hmm.
is, as it
Mm-hmm.
unfolds.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes you just got to trust
Yeah.
that where you are in the present moment is not where you want to be, and be
Mm-hmm.
open to what is unfolding for you, what might
Mm-hmm.
be in store for you.
Mm-hmm. Sound like you're one who believes in what the universe has for you and you go get it. You believe in it and you go get it.
Yeah, and it took a lot of unlearning and then relearning trust in
Mm-hmm.
myself,
Mm-hmm.
in like the universe, in my intuition.
Mm-hmm.
And as you said, I think you shared before that you had previous experience as a broadcaster, journalism, and
Yep.
sometimes we are bombarded with information
Mm-hmm.
and we kind of forget how to trust ourselves
Yes.
when we doubt ourselves,
Yes.
because somebody says this somewhere, or somebody says this somewhere, or you're
Mm-hmm.
reading this.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes instead of trying to look so desperately externally outside of ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
we kind of need to ground and then look internally within ourselves. And we
I like
realize that,
that.
oh,
Yeah.
sometimes the answer, there's more wisdom in there than you realize.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Now, before I get talking with you about this trader mindset, let me ask you, what is a fun fact about mailing that people might not know?
Um, so when I grew up, I loved all things biology, and
Mm-hmm.
Sir David Attenborough was like my hero. And so I did very well in biology, and at one very brief period in my traveling life,
Mm-hmm.
I was a wildlife guide on a floating eco lodge in Panama.
No way. I love these fun facts. Wow. How long did you do that for?
That was like 4 months, but when you live on the boat, you work on the boat. Like you're never switched off.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it was intense. I gave tours of the Panama Canal. I guided clients, overnight clients who stayed overnight hiking, kayaking,
It
swimming.
was more fun, right?
Yeah, it was fun.
That's good. Well, now let's talk about trading. How impatient are traders sometimes?
In fact, almost all the time I can say in the beginning. It's like a rite of passage.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Wow.
I think in the beginning, people are mostly attracted to
Mm-hmm.
trading is because they think of oh, I'm going to get financial freedom, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I can do whatever I want once I have that money. But what they don't realize that in the beginning as a learner,
Mm-hmm.
learning the strategy, finding out about yourself,
Mm-hmm.
it's what I call the trader's paradox. Because
Mm-hmm.
in the beginning, you actually have to detach yourself from the money,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
in order to learn what you need to learn, and then
Mm-hmm.
the money comes in.
That's right.
That's really hard because money is very emotional. People have a
It
lot of
is.
emotional attachment to money. Yeah.
Yeah. So would you say there is a certain type of personality that is needed to be a trader?
I would say the most,
Or it can be cultivated in the process.
yeah, it can be cultivated. But
Okay.
the most important thing I found is you need to be open-minded,
Mm-hmm.
have a curiosity about
Mm-hmm.
yourself
Mm-hmm.
versus cynicism. Some people get very cynical
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
and they have this attitude like, oh, I know this already, I know that already.
yeah.
Like,
So
I like,
come with an empty, blank mind
yeah, like blank page, like a little kid, like, a sponge ready to learn.
to absorb.
You're ready to learn, being curious
Mm-hmm.
and being compassionate to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Because so often we are our own harshest critics.
Mm-hmm.
And I have found that, especially with coaching my one-on-one clients, I said, sometimes we are so harsh to ourselves. We would say things to ourselves we would never say to a kid or to our best friend.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't help you on your learning journey.
Yeah.
Trading is already one of the most difficult things to learn, I
I
feel,
can imagine, yeah.
let alone you being your own harshest critic along the way. There's no
Yeah.
need for that kind of suffering.
Yeah. So is it round the clock business? Do you sleep? Because you have to always know what's happening in the market.
One of the most important things I actually teach my clients is it's less about time management per se, but more about energy management, right?
Yeah.
Following your energy and realizing, because energy is so individual, I feel, certain
Mhm.
things light you up, certain things just drain you of
Yeah.
energy. So
Mm-hmm.
I really teach that, for my clients to discern. And then the beautiful thing about trading is that there are so many different assets to trade, right? There's Forex, there's options, there's futures, there's stocks, now there's crypto. And it's easier than ever to trade. Like people now can use their mobile phone to trade. Whereas, my mentors from who have been trading for like 20, 30 years, they tell me that they used to take a phone call and they have to pay
Yeah.
like $20 to
Wow.
place a trade, you know. Now it's more accessible than ever.
Yeah.
So the barrier to entry is probably the lowest ever, but then the pressure,
Mm-hmm.
everybody compares themselves to this person on Instagram,
Mm-hmm.
this person
Mm-hmm.
on YouTube, and then they go like, why am I not there yet? And
Yeah.
then they face a lot of pressure and burden on
Yeah.
themselves. Yeah.
Yeah. So it used to be like when you tell kids of today that there was no GPS back then, you had to print like a map quest to look at the streets while you're driving, or there was no smartphone. You had to go to the dialing phone and do that. But today it's way clearer and easier. That's really good. You saw in your profile that you help swing traders to overcome greed. The greed in that sentence, what does that mean?
So as I said in the beginning, you just want money, you want
You
profits,
just want money.
right? You're
Yeah.
like, I just want the money fast.
Mm-hmm.
And you see, probably, so most people learn trading from a mentor. They join a Discord group, they have a
Mm-hmm.
course, they might have a Facebook private group, right? So they're going through videos, or some people just learn through YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
But sooner or later, they realize they get capped, their knowledge is capped, need to learn
Yeah.
further, and
More.
they get a mentor.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then because everybody joins at different times, it's like school. Even
Yeah.
though we want to have standardized tests and standardized grades and standardized things of learning, every person is so individual.
Mm-hmm.
And your timeline is your own. And usually when you're a trader, you have other things going on in your life,
You do,
right? You might
yeah.
have a
Yeah.
family, you might have a job. It's very
Mm-hmm.
different. Whereas in school, you can, you have chores, you have things that you need to do, but usually you can focus on school. But
Mm-hmm.
as a trader, usually when you come into it, you have other things going on in your life.
Mm.
So finding your lifestyle, like I have clients who are, who work shifts at the hospital, who have a 9 to 5 job in the beginning, And you can find a style of trading that works for you
Mm-hmm.
because the Forex markets, there's the London session, there's the New York session. You can go onto your platform. If you're just looking at stocks, you can place what we call limit orders. That means
Yeah.
only when a price reaches a certain point, then you enter,
Mm-hmm.
versus like what's happening right now, a market order. So there are many different ways of trading. And depending on the individual lifestyle, you have to choose,
You have to
right? Which
choose.
style suits you best. And there's some people personalities that are very like high energy
Mm-hmm.
and they love being able to like place a trade now and get out of a trade maybe within the hour.
Yeah.
Whereas some people are a little bit more like, hey, I want to analyze, I want to make sure
Yeah.
make the right decision,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't want to have to worry about it while I'm at work. So
Mm-hmm.
they swing trade. They place a
Mm.
trade and then it might take a week, 2 weeks even before it plays out, but they feel better because they feel calmer, they feel more in control, and that suits
Mm-hmm.
them.
Mm.
So depending on who you are, whether an intraday trader or a swing trader, the thing about greed is that when you are within the group, most people only post their wins to share. Very few
Yeah.
people post their losses,
That's
right?
what social media even does today. Nobody tells me, oh, my husband slapped me yesterday. It's always, oh, he gave me a gift yesterday. So it's always a
Yeah,
positive. Okay.
yeah.
All
And
right. I
people
have a
don't,
question for you
they feel
online.
ashamed.
Yeah. So,
Yes.
Paul is joining us from Cameroon. Thank you, Paul. He says, what are the reliable trading platforms for beginners?
I think, are you talking about brokerages? Like which platform you can open up a brokerage for? Because it depends on which country you live in.
Mm-hmm.
So in the US, I really like the Thinkorswim platform.
Mm-hmm.
TD, Ameritrade. Um, so for me, where I am in Australia, there's Interactive Brokers. For options trading, I can use Tasty Trade, but it used to be Tasty Works.
Mm-hmm.
And for Forex, the main thing about Forex, I have to say, is this. Unlike futures and options and plain stocks, Forex is largely unregulated.
Mm-hmm.
And if you think about it, right, anybody who's traveled to a different country, when you
Mm-hmm.
want to exchange currency, you can go to a little booth,
Yeah. At the airport.
debate and negotiate, right? What the exchange rate is. It's kind
Yeah.
of like that in Forex, but on
Mm.
a platform, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's largely unregulated, is who wants to buy, who wants to sell, who is available online to do that right now.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to be very careful because sometimes the brokerage platform, when you read the terms and conditions and about us page, they might be in some, little island somewhere,
Mm-hmm.
unregulated. And then you have to think to yourself, if anything goes wrong, right? You don't want to store a large amount of money in your account
Yeah.
balance because if anything goes wrong, if the company dissolves, you are left with nothing.
Yeah.
You have to be very careful, right? They don't guarantee your balance. Whereas with regulated brokers like Thinkorswim, TradeStation, Oenda.com for Forex, these kind of platforms are more secure because they are regulated.
That's great. I
Yes.
love when I get questions from viewers. And he also says between stock trading, forex, and commodities, what should be the focus for beginners for 2025? So if you want to start this year, what do you suggest the beginning trading platform should be?
That is such a good question. And I think stocks and commodities are actually great.
Mm-hmm.
Commodities are actually really interesting because you get to see how the world politics and economics
Mm.
play into commodities. You
That's,
know,
yeah.
for like for me, where I am in Australia, Melburnians, we love our coffee and we notice when the price of coffee has increased.
That should work also, for the East Coast in America because it's very cold. And so coffee should be that, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we notice when the price of coffee has increased, when the
Mm-hmm.
price of gas or petrol has increased, right? The cost of living,
Mm-hmm.
and that plays into world economics and that plays in the commodities markets. You can see that as well, right? So you get to see the macroeconomic picture for that.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas with stocks, I think it's good to narrow down into stocks because when you watch a particular stock, let's say Tesla or Netflix is very volatile, but very popular to trade.
Mm-hmm.
You start to get to know each individual stock. And I love an analogy is like, the saying, it takes a village to raise a kid,
Yeah.
right? To raise children.
Mm-hmm.
But as a mom, you would know your kid the best,
Yes. Mm-hmm.
right? They say like, how come I think my mother has like eyes on the back of her head? How come
My
she
kids,
knows
I
what I'm
have
doing
eyes
when
in
I
the back
close
and
my
they believe
room,
me.
right? So because you know them, you've seen
Yeah.
them grow up, you're so familiar. Same
Mm-hmm.
thing with stocks. When you chart a stock consistently and you see its movements, right, throughout different quarters of the year, you
Mm-hmm.
see the movements during earnings period when they're reporting, how much they did in a quarter. You
Mm-hmm.
see the stock movement when, usually when somebody in the US Fed speaks like Jerome Powell, you see how it moves, the reaction on the market based on those stocks. You get to become very familiar with the movement. And that is the kind of familiarity that you kind of need to trade confidently because there's no 100% guarantee trade, there's
Mm-hmm.
probabilities. But the more familiar you are, just like your kids, the more likely you know, oh, in this situation, my kid will probably react this way.
That
Same
is
thing
such a
with stocks.
great analogy. Your kids, the way you know them, because to be honest, yeah, that's so true. I can get into a bathroom after I shower and I know which kid took a shower just because of I
That's
do,
so
just the bathroom was left after the shower. So I get that. And I mean, like Comfort says online, she says, great topic, ladies. I am as good as illiterate when it comes to trading and investment in stock. She needs some literacy. And we're all here to learn together. Thank you for joining us, Comfort. So let's go back to your journey from optometrist to becoming a trader. Did you just wake up one day and say, I'm done? Or did you start trading while working still and then gradually you faded out from optometrist?
Yeah, more the latter. But the first thing that struck
Mhm.
me was the initial inspiration and anticipation and excitement that I had as an optometrist, thinking that,
Mm.
when you're younger, I feel that I was very idealistic. I want
Hmm.
to help the world. I want to
Yeah,
contribute.
yeah.
And because I love biology and learning about the human body and neuroscience and everything else, optometry suited me. And I loved having patients one-on-one in the consult room, and I was helping them solve their problem. But the wider industry, they didn't care. They didn't care about patients. They just cared about profits. How many glasses did you convince them to buy? How many contact lenses did you sell? And I was like, that's not how I carry out a consultation. I
Mm-hmm.
base on the person sitting right there in front of me right now, see what their problem or issue is.
Mm-hmm.
If there's no problem and they're just there for a checkup,
Mm-hmm.
and then I look at everything else. If they don't need to get anything, they don't need to buy anything, I'm not
Yeah,
selling them. That's not my
correct.
job.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
My job is to make sure that their eye health is the best
Mm-hmm.
and they feel good about living their life and having the vision that they have,
Mm-hmm.
right? Everything else is after the fact.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that, oh, when they come into my room, the first thing I have in the back of my mind is like, oh, I want to make sure that when they leave, I sell them
I
something.
saw
That's
something,
not how
yeah.
I operate.
Yeah.
So I felt that it was so soul sucking and the industry I saw how they pressured fresh graduates as well. And
Mm-hmm.
it, it really ate at me. And I was just so frustrated. I knew that
You had to
it was a
leave.
choice. It was either to
Yeah.
set up my own practice or
Mm-hmm.
to leave the industry. At one point, I felt like, and I was just fighting this huge battle.
Mm.
And it was just so hard. And I was just thinking that you got to pick your battles.
Yeah.
Because I was trying to find each and every one for my patients, and I was growing exhausted, and I knew I was going to get burned out. And on the airplane, they say like, should oxygen mask come down, you should fit
Put
yours
yours
first
first.
before you
Mm-hmm.
fit others. It's
Right.
the same thing. Like you've
Mm-hmm.
got to fill up your own cup before you can serve others, right?
Mm-hmm.
Before you can pour into others. And my
Mm-hmm.
cup was getting empty.
Yeah. You cannot give what you don't have.
Yeah, you cannot give what you
Yeah.
don't have.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided to leave, and I didn't know, right? I didn't know what was going to happen next. I didn't know how I was going to but I just knew I had to leave because it was so
Mm-hmm.
painful.
Yeah.
Um, and that was
The turning
Like I
point
trusted
for you.
myself because I
Yeah.
know I'm smart, right? But
Mhm.
my parents were so afraid for me,
Oh,
and
the bragging
everybody
rights.
told me I was crazy.
The bragging rights of Asian and African parents of saying, my daughter is an optometrist, my daughter is a lawyer, my son is a doctor, and then you're
Yeah.
leaving that profession to go do what? And I
Yeah.
don't know how they'll say it, in Europe, they'll say, you're going to sell what?
Well, it's like it's more like, what are you? Do you know what you're giving up? You've got financial security, right? You've got a career, a profession, And actually, I remember my dad when I was younger saying this to me. He goes, a profession is really important, especially when, and as a teenager, because he had his own experiences, right, in in
Hmm.
the in the workforce, and he was like, if you study something like English literature or it's very subjective, he says,
Yeah.
which means that if your teacher, if your boss doesn't like you, they can score you very low. They can fail you. They can give you a bad performance review
Yeah,
evaluation.
because it's open to interpretation, English
Yes.
literature and
Whereas he
English.
says maths and science, you show your
It's
work,
101. 1 plus 1 is
they,
2.
they,
You can't
they
deny
can't
it.
refute it, right? They need your skills. You have
Hmm.
to be kind of indisposable that way. So he
Yeah.
learned from his own painful experiences, and he wanted to make sure that I didn't face the same hurt, discrimination in the workforce. So he really wanted a profession for me, which I appreciated that attempt. I really do.
Yeah. Yeah.
But in this particular case, there were other parts of it that didn't work for me. And it was so hard to, in the beginning, to even like begin to convey that message, to get my parents to understand where
Mhm.
I was coming from.
That's great. I want to ask you about risks that are involved in trading and how much money somebody needs to start. But before I do that, I love when I interact with the audience. Thank you, Comfort, for this comment. She says, can she say something about trading 212, please? Someone introduced me to it, but I am still very overwhelmed trying to come out of my comfort zone and learn a new thing. So what is trading 212? Like 212?
I'm not sure if she's talking about a particular strategy called the strat. Um, there are different strategies. So if you are a complete beginner, this might not be very, you might think this is not helpful, but I would say you need to start from somewhere, and actually YouTube as a free
YouTube
resource
has a lot of resources. Yeah, you can learn a
is
lot from
remarkable,
YouTube.
right?
Mm.
But the thing is, just like how there are so many different kinds of, like, look, we love how the world we live in because there's variety and diversity.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with YouTube videos and also trader mentors. But you've got to pick one that resonates with you,
Mm-hmm.
because there's trader mentors, there's different styles. There's styles that feel very maternal, nurturing. There's
Mm-hmm.
styles that feel like a drill sergeant, and they like, but some people thrive in that, right? So
Mm-hmm.
you need to find a mentor that speaks to you and just start looking at
Yeah.
YouTube videos, beginner YouTube videos, for
Yeah.
stocks.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I I would hesitate to say options is a asset that is tricky to learn in the beginning. So in the
Mm-hmm.
beginning, I would say shares and stocks to learn.
Mm-hmm.
Right in the beginning, maybe Forex. Forex is good because they give a very good picture on the market structure, how to read a chart, a candlestick chart, right?
Mm-hmm.
Usually those videos are very good as a beginner. Then learn those first, and then you'll find that when you find one particular trader mentor that resonates with you, realize that as a strategy, right? Then maybe you want to learn more. They have a course, join their
Mm-hmm.
Discord, which can be a
Yeah.
month by month subscription. So,
Mm-hmm.
it's relatively from free to low investment, and you
Mm-hmm.
can slowly build trust and
Mm-hmm.
build knowledge. And then from there, you can make the right decision moving forward. You know
I
what the next
agree.
steps.
Yeah. And also I can add to that, even though I don't have a trading knowledge, that when somebody introduces you to something, you can also you don't have to buy it right away, whatever they sold
Yes.
to you. You can also expand your knowledge by, you say, going online and learning on, you might pick one that is different from what they told you about that you just like and you start from there. We have got a few to talk about, but I love, I think my audience is learning a lot more from interacting with you. And Paul says, what has been your highest earnings in your trading journey? What were the things you did to build your capacity? Is it okay to say what has been your greatest earning?
I would definitely say that collectively, so each trade will be a five-figure trade for like
Mm,
the highest earnings, right?
correct.
Um, but it took time because I needed to scale. So
Mm-hmm.
the first thing as a beginner, so I always tell my clients and in general, on my social platforms, I say, you need to reframe and redefine what success means to you in the beginning.
Yeah.
In the
Okay.
beginning, success means you show up consistently, right? You get over your fears, get over into out of your comfort zone, and are willing to place a live trade, right? You're willing to have your first loss.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually a win because your emotional capacity and learning about yourself, putting yourself out there, right? So in the beginning, your definition of success is different. Only once you do that and becomes your norm, it's like, oh yeah, I understand that trading is all about probabilities, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then, when you find a strategy that works and you go, okay, even with this strategy, with this model, I know that maybe it has a win rate of 60 to 70%.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm okay with that, right? So that means like 60 to 7 times, 6 to 7 times I will win. And then like 3 to 4 times I will lose. But
Yeah.
because I have good risk management and I know how much I'm losing potentially each trade, overall, the wins make me profitable, right? On an average month.
Wow. That's good.
And it's just a matter of skill. It's
Yeah.
a matter of like buying more lots on Forex, buying more contracts on options, buying more contracts on futures. That's all you need to do,
That's
right? But
great.
it's just the beginning, your definition of success and your timeline, like how soon you become successful or profitable.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That is how you need to reframe. The mindset is so important because
I
everybody
think
wants results fast,
Yeah,
everybody
they
wants
need
money
people
fast.
like you because I bet you, just like Comfort is saying, I think people who have sold the idea of trading to others without being a coach like yourself have said, oh, you're going to make $10,000. They sell the money, they sell the win to you. They sell the success in cash to you. They don't sell the success, by the first failure. That's a success because you stayed, even though you failed, you lost, but you still stayed. So I like that definition of success. It's not just the big wins right away. It is the small losses that leads to the wins and the bigger and the biggest wins. You know, that's
And I
awesome.
always tell my clients, like when you technically lose a trade, you lose money on a trade, ask yourself, oh, what lesson is there to be learned here?
Yeah.
Right? So it's not a win or a loss, it's a win or a lesson.
Yeah, we know a lesson. And if somebody wants to start trading, they say they have XYZ amount of money, what would you advise them to start with? If I have some money, I want to risk it in trading, what would you tell me to put in? Even if I have $1 million today, I want to trade, how would you advise me to invest that money? Because there's risk involved. Where do I start
Yeah.
with and how much do I start with?
So it depends on the brokerage and the asset that you want to trade.
Mm-hmm.
Forex has the lowest barrier to entry, right? You can start literally with $100 to open up a Forex brokerage account. With options, I would say you need a minimum of 1,000.
Mm-hmm.
And with futures, you could probably get away with 500, 1,000. But basically, in the beginning, you just want to learn. Your goal is to learn. Your goal is to go through the first hurdle and obstacle, which is setting up a brokerage,
Mm-hmm.
funding your account. And there's always an option usually where there is a simulation or a
Mm-hmm.
demo, right? So you can log into a simulation or demo, which is kind of like Monopoly money.
Yeah, you
It's not
observe.
real money. So you can learn. You can
Mm-hmm.
familiarize yourself with the platform. You can familiarize yourself what it feels like when you
Mm-hmm.
first click the button and you get into a trade.
Yay!
Yeah, and then your heart beats so fast, like you need to
Yeah.
start learning about yourself and the
Like the
platform.
casino machines that, cheer you up after you spend $1, even though you didn't win anything back.
Yeah. So
Okay.
that is what you need to learn. Then once you get to know yourself better, you know your platform, you know the asset that you're trading.
Mm-hmm.
So with Forex, again, start with very small lots. And usually when you learn from a course, they'll teach you how there's such a thing as a Forex calculator because different pairs like Europe USD, Gold USD, British pound, Japanese yen, they all have different, they calculate differently, right? Because the
Mm-hmm.
currencies have different weightage.
Different. Mm-hmm.
So you get to learn how many lots to enter in the trade first, like what numbers to punch in your calculator, so to speak, to place the order. And with futures, I would say definitely start with micros, which is like the smallest, um, contract that you can buy. Because
Mm.
in the beginning, you're not looking to make $1 million or
Which is
five
what you were
fifty
sold,
thousand dollars,
probably.
right? In the beginning, you're looking to make like, oh, can I make $50? Like, what
Yeah.
does it take? Because your emotions come in, the strategy comes in. What I would say is this, like a very useful analogy for my clients is like sports, professional sports. So
Mm-hmm.
if you are if you have a club like a baseball club, basketball, right? When you are practicing at home in your home gym, home court, you're just practicing is a normal practice session with the guys and the
Mm-hmm.
coach. Maybe you are like in the flow state, you are like, wow, 3 pointers here, like a touchdown there, it's easy. But when you are on a live game away, that means you are in the competitor's home ground, not your home ground. The crowd is wild. The crowd says boo from the sidelines. And this game is so important because it's the game that determines whether you qualify to the next round or the championship. Your performance is going to be different, totally different,
Yes.
right? From your
Yes.
normal, like, hey, I'm just practicing with the guys in my home
Yes.
stadium, right? This is what trading is like. When you practice in simulation, in sim or demo, right? Learning more about yourself versus when you're like, oh gosh, everything depends on this trade. And we never want to get to the point where we're like, if I don't profit from this trade, I can't pay my bill. I don't know where my next meal is coming from. Never. We never want to get that point with trading.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wow. So for someone who started investing in index, like Paul is saying online, he says started investing in index fund. What are some of the pitfalls I should avoid?
If you're investing in indices,
Index fund.
oh, an index fund, like an ETF. Well, that is actually very smart because it is not like active trading, intraday or swing trader.
Mm-hmm.
Index fund is probably the most calming, the best for your nervous system, I would say, way of investing that's actually quite smart, right? You can have a job and then you can invest in this on the side. So with index investing, I would say number one, you want to check the fees. The
Mm-hmm.
fees that the index fund is charging you,
Take
right?
note, Paul. Check the fees. That's number one. Mm.
Yeah, because you think that, okay, year on year, it's going to go, 8.5% or whatever. And then you realize that the fees are so much that overall, it's costing you a lot. And
Mm-hmm.
now, for example, I'm not affiliated with them, but I would say like Vanguard has, they revolutionized the index industry because they made the fees so little,
Mm-hmm.
so small, and they really serve their customers well. Um, so I would say indices and index fund is actually one of the smartest ways to
That's
invest. So
great. That's great. Is there anything
kudos
like,
to you.
oh, yeah, kudos to you, Paul. Yeah, you did the right thing. Is there anything like over trading?
For sure.
Mm.
Um, Over trading is not about trading too many assets at one time. Over
Mhm.
trading usually in my world for intraday and swing traders is
Mhm.
so in general, the world of trading is very unpredictable because when you think about it, from the moment you were born, your family, school, society, your
Mhm.
workplace, all has rules and regulations,
Yep.
right? But when you're trading, you are the lawmaker,
Mm.
right? There's no rules or regulations, right? Only like if you use margin, which is like different brokerages allow you. So let's say you only have $1,000, but you
Mhm.
apply for a margin account, which sometimes they give you 1:4, which means like you have $4,000 to trade with. But
Mhm.
actually, You only have $1,000. That
It's
means
the
if
three, it's
you
not
win, you win
yours.
big. But when you lose, you owe
Yeah.
people money, right?
Yeah.
You will get a
Mhm.
margin call. So you've got to be really careful that you create your own rules and you have to abide by them.
Mm.
But so many people get drunk on trading, being like, "Oh, I'm my own boss. I can do everything," and then they break their own rules.
Mm.
Kind of like New Year's resolutions, right? This is the perfect
Mhm.
time because like
It
you
doesn't
go,
last.
going to go to the gym, I'm going to read how many pages of the book, and then like 3 weeks later, you're like, you've broken all your rules.
Yeah.
Oh, it's raining outside. I don't want to jog. Oh, you give excuses, right? We, as I say, usually we are our own like worst enemy, right? So with trading as well, you have to be the regulator. You have to be like the lawmaker. So every individual has to make their own rules. So for me, if I lose 2 trades during the New York session, that's it. Close my computer, I log off. I'm no longer trading that day. The
Mm.
next day, new day, right? But
Mm.
people, usually when they lose money, they're like, oh, damn. And then they think, and then all they have in the back of their mind is like, I want to make up for that loss. So
Mm.
they jump into
Into
trades
trades and do
that they
more.
haven't planned,
Yeah.
right? They jumped into the trades that they haven't analyzed. They jumped into trades that they are not ready for because in the back of their mind is like, I need to make up that money. I need to make
Mm.
up that money. And that is overtrading.
Mm.
That is when they're in real danger of blowing their account altogether, like losing all
Mm-hmm.
the money.
Mm-hmm. Wow. I mean, I like the sports analysis because sometimes when people's team lose, they break the TV, they throw the chairs away and all that stuff. And so when you also lose in training, you feel like I have to do this because I have
It's
to
very
come
brutal.
back and come back really big. But so you would say that the advice to people who lose in trading, you just said you shut your computer and you go away and take a day off or something. Some people might not do that. What do you advise somebody who loses in trading and have no way of taking care of their temperament? What should they do normally? What the advice that you would give them?
This is why I say that you need to start slow, right? Start in the sim, start in the demo account, and get to know yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Because think about it, in our society right now, and sadly, I would say for a lot of males,
Mm-hmm.
they grew up thinking like, you should man up, you shouldn't cry, don't show emotions, right? And the majority of traders are men. And all their lives, they've been told don't show emotion, right? Don't feel your feelings, don't get to know yourself. And so when it comes to trading, all of a sudden these emotions rise up and they're like, what the hell do I do with all these
And they
emotions?
show it in
I
such
feel
a violent,
angry,
wrong way that they can't really control it physically. Wow.
right? And then they want to like trash things and hit things, and as you say, right? They feel so emotional and they feel like they're hating themselves, they
Mm-hmm.
disappoint themselves, they hate this feeling. People just want to feel like winners,
Yeah.
right?
Want to win all the time. I'm more of, what you just said about if I'm losing or even if I'm angry about something or with somebody, I get away from there. I have never understood why people will break things because they're angry or pick things. I'm like, how does that help solve the problem? I don't get it, especially in the West, in this United States where I am. People will do that a lot. I'm like, they say, oh, it takes out the anger in you. No, it doesn't. I don't think it does.
I think it depends on the personality. I think you, Mabel, are more insightful than most, and more reflective, right? But a lot of people, it's kind of like a volcano erupting.
Mm-hmm.
You've been taught to quell it down, and then all of a sudden, certain things, and then it just blows up, right? Because you haven't learned how to manage
Mm-hmm.
your emotions, your anger, your frustrations, right? You've been trying to sweep it under the carpet or not really look at it and not confront it, and then all of a sudden it just blows up.
Yeah, it blows up.
So with emotions and things as that, it's like you get to really know yourself. And as I say, you need to check your ego at the door because trading is not about you being right. Trading is about you being profitable. If you insist on being right, you know, you will, and trading will force you to eat humble pie at one point or another. And that is when you actually start to learn.
Yeah.
If you insist that you're right, that you've got some sort of magic crystal ball, right? I can't believe the market go in the opposite direction when I saw it should have gone to this, and you insist, the market doesn't care about you.
Yeah. I have a coworker who trades, and one thing he told me that I cannot forget is that people who teach you how to trade, right? They don't always win. But when they come to the class, they present that victor mentality, that patient
Mm.
mentality, let you know that you're going to win. You know, it could be slow, but you're going to win. So they suck it in and they come with to you with some good perspective and positivity, which he said is what has helped him. They don't come show up, like you said, they begin their losses because they're there to teach you. And it's you're going to lose. It's probability. It's not like math, one plus one not two. It's equal. It's not just like that. So that's what he told me he learned. Let's leave trading and talk about culture. I want to talk to you about this because I was so glad to know that you know you're Asian. And when I talk to people who are Asians, especially, I get this cultural clash or cultural similarity between Africans and Asians. And it was interesting when you said that your parents had bragging rights, you know, about you being an optometrist, and then you left, and then oh my God, I can imagine how you burst their bubbles about that. But good way of your father, you know, accepting that this is a way you can go and make it different. What about other people in your family, aunties, uncles? Because I know that the Asian, just like
Actually,
African family, is broad. Did they have a say in your choice?
I'm sure they did.
But
But I would
they
say
didn't
that
tell you,
for
I
me,
guess. Not all of them told you.
yeah, for me, what mattered the most actually was my dad and my mom.
Mm-hmm.
Specifically, actually, my dad. Because when I was a kid, a little girl, I put my dad up on a pedestal, right? I
Yep.
really looked up to him
Mm-hmm.
and I admired him and respected him. And so what he thought actually really mattered to me. And it wasn't that he accepted it in the beginning. In fact, he was the one. There were a lot of tears shed in the beginning, I have to say, Mabel, like, because it was so hard to explain to him. And so for your audience, right? And for yourself, I grew up in Singapore, right? The little country just above the equator near Malaysia. And my parents are still there. My family is still there. I moved separately to Australia on my own to go to the University of Melbourne. Now, when I graduated and I started working here, there'll be days where I haven't managed to eat lunch because there were so many emergencies squeezed in, right? Or there'll be days where I see, and I've seen such horrific things. I feel like optometrists is kind of like, you know how they say bartenders and hairdressers, people always talk to them and they hear all sorts of stories because people open up to them.
Mm-hmm.
When my patients, right, tell me, like I remember a patient telling me she was fairly elderly and she had a tremor.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was asking her about her medical history, what medication she takes, what has she had before, in terms of illnesses and conditions, she couldn't quite remember. And then
Mm-hmm.
she apologized to me. She says, I am so sorry because when I was married, my husband used to beat me and hit me on the head so that the bruises wouldn't show underneath my hair.
Mm-hmm.
And I suffered with that for so long, and only I left him only when my kids grew up and left home. But unfortunately, I've suffered brain damage, and so my memory is not so good right now. She apologized to me. And I just felt, the stories that I heard. And, so for me, I feel a lot of things from my patients, from people. And sometimes back then, in optometry school, they never teach you how to conserve your energy. They never teach you what to, back then, what to say to patients that tell you this story, like counseling, like psychology, they didn't teach you that.
Yeah.
And so sometimes I would come home at the end of the day feeling exhausted and drained, and I still carried that heavy energy with me. And I told my parents, I was like, you never saw me come home at the end of a really exhausting, draining day because you were in Singapore.
Yeah.
You didn't see how broken I was.
Mm-hmm.
Day after day, when I choose to fight battle after battle. And I was like, I can't do this anymore. I know it looks good on paper that you can brag to everybody that I'm this and I'm earning good money, but I'm like, it's sucking my soul and I don't know how else to explain it to you.
Yeah.
It may not make logical, rational sense, but this is how I feel inside. So I'm
Yeah.
not sure how much longer I can do this because this is when I practice and I show up, like the rule the modus operandi that I operated from was like every patient that walked through my door, I'm determined to solve their problem or
Mm-hmm.
refer them to an ophthalmologist, which is an eye surgeon, right?
Yeah.
If solving the problem means surgery, like
Yeah.
cataract or something.
Mm-hmm.
But otherwise, my responsibility is like, I want to solve the problem. I want to solve
Mm-hmm.
the issue. I was so determined, But I realized very quickly that not many of my peers felt that way. All of them had gotten into huge mortgages and their concerns was paying the bills and, paying for their children's private education. And if they go like, if I have to sell, 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 then that's what I'm going to have to do. And they cared less about what they did in the consult room with the patients, but I just cared so much. So each individual practitioner also has different ethics, different values. And the way I practiced was just very exhausting
Mm-hmm.
for the industry at the time
Wow.
because my values and the industry's values
Yeah.
didn't match.
Yeah, you do have to have the values to work inside an industry, otherwise you're going to burn yourself up. Another thing
Yeah.
that I know that, African parents brag about is marriage. The day that your daughter is getting married or your son is like, that's a day for the father or the mother to brag about it. It's like a bragging right. Did you see my daughter's wedding? Oh, yours was nothing. So is that something that also happens in the Asian community, bragging about who your daughter or your son is marrying to and how the marriage was so flamboyant and beautiful and expensive?
Depends on both the individual country and the individual family. So, for example, my friends who are Indonesian Chinese, it's a big deal.
Mhm.
Like the father usually invites all their business associates. So the weddings are
Yes.
huge, right? It's as if like if you didn't get invited, it's almost an insult, Like why didn't I get invited, right? So
Yeah.
in order for good business relations, they kind of need to do that.
Mm-hmm.
In Singapore, for me, right now I think the landscape is changing because people
Mm.
are getting older before they get married,
Yep.
and it's so expensive to have children now, right? When you think about the cost and the tuition and you want the best for them. So I would say that this is when my father really imparted wisdom, and I was very lucky because not all Asian fathers are like this.
Yeah.
He told me, so in my family, it's just me and my older sister, two girls. And he
Mm-hmm.
said, you know, the reason why I put so much emphasis on your education is because later on when you grow up, if you were ever in a bad marriage, I want you to be able to feel like you can leave your marriage and be independent on your own. This is why I place so much emphasis on education. I didn't know how much foresight he had back then, but now I look back and I'm like, wow, I'm so thankful. So there were so many things I was at loggerheads with him, but there were certain things when I'm like, wow, I'm so grateful to my father.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I like that because, your father saying that if the marriage doesn't work, you can leave tomorrow because in a typical African culture, whether it works or not, you have to stay. Like the woman who came to
Oh.
you and her husband had knocked her head so many times that she had wounds. You have women in typical African communities who are suffering from domestic abuse, but culturally, divorce is like a no-no. And then even if it happens, it's a shame on the woman, like you left
Mm,
your husband. They don't even want to look at why you left. It's like hitting the woman is a thing. I was on a show last week with another person who brought up a topic about a guy from my own country who was beating his wife so bad last week, and it was put on social media because of about $60. I was like, are you sure this is the reason why he beat her? And even if that was the reason, like, why do you even raise your hand and beat somebody? And I was saying that I don't think this happened just today. It probably has been happening for a long time before it even got this to this level of
mm,
escalation. And my other point to that panel was that women should empower themselves, like your father empowered you, so that if it doesn't work tomorrow, you can get out, forget about the shame, but you can take care of yourself. So all these parents bragging rights about marriage for their children and the job that they have, sometimes it doesn't equate to the child's happiness. Let's put their happiness at the forefront. I know something that Asians also have in common with Africans is respect. Respect for the
mm,
elders, respect for the grandparents, for the parents, and the way that we treat them. In my culture, if I walk into, or if an older person walks into a room, I just have to get up and give them my seat. I don't see that here. I walk in and I see kids. I'm like, hey, can you give me your seat? They go, no, I was here first. I'm like, I don't care. give it to that grandmother. So talk about respect in the Asian culture a little bit before I let you go.
So, yeah, there's a lot of similarities. So let's say, for example, next week, Chinese New Year is coming up. The Lunar New Year is coming up.
Mm-hmm.
And traditionally in Chinese New Year, we pay our respects to the oldest living relative first.
Yeah.
So on the first day of Chinese New Year, we go to the oldest living relative. So it can be a great grandparent, grandparent, you know. Then as the days go by, so in Singapore, it's usually like 2 days on a as an official public holiday, but you know, in their own time, in the evenings, on the weekends, you still visit relatives, right? It still
Mm-hmm.
goes
Yeah.
on for about a week.
Mm-hmm.
But the first day you visit the most important, and then you know when you're on the like the fourth or fifth day, you're not as important.
You go down the
But
ladder.
yeah, yeah. But you know, like simple things like that, when you say in public transport, giving up your seat, courtesy, I think common courtesy as a human being, you know, just ability should be there, right?
Yeah.
You see others. But on another vein, I would have to say that as a teenager, I realized, you know, when you meet even people who might be older than you, but their behavior is obnoxious,
Oh, some
right?
people are.
Right. And then you just think, you're like, wow, sometimes there are exceptions where respect is not automatically given, it has to be earned,
It has to be earned.
you
Yeah.
know, but it's up to you to make, it's up to your discretion to
Yeah.
make that judgment
Yeah.
and discernment for
Yeah.
yourself,
I
right?
think that is where it goes beyond because I'm talking in cases of the typical African, the typical Asian society.
Mm,
But today with globalization and people moving away from that typical cultural environment and experiencing other cultures and other ways of doing things, they start behaving differently and they look at it differently because in that culture, let's say 2 generations ago or 3 of yours and my culture, even if that older person was mean, we're still gonna go visit them and say, hey, I come to respect you. But today you're like, that grandma is mean. I don't want to see her, so you can, you know, not go see them because they have been mean to you. Anyway, it's beautiful to know that culture is something that we admire. We really love so much. And I think we should keep it, even though we're getting away from our societies and learning a lot more about other people's, we should uphold the virtues of our culture. We think we should. Meiling, it has been a pleasure to have you here today. So if somebody who wants to learn how to swing trade, learn the skills from you, where should they go? What should they go to look for you?
Well, I have to clarify that I coach traders on their mindset while they are trading,
While
right?
they are
So
already
I don't
trading.
teach them,
Okay.
yeah, I don't teach them the strategy,
So you're more
but
of that
because I've traded everything,
psychological person that tells,
yeah, the
oh, I
psychological
gotcha.
and
That's
emotional
beautiful.
mindset.
Mm-hmm.
Because in optometry school, we had to learn about the brain.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
learned a lot of neuroscience about why your brain acts the way,
It
why your
does.
brain makes you behave the way you do, and why
Mm-hmm.
you feel those emotions. And
Mm.
then after that, I got certified as a coach. So through that and my own journey of trading, I know exactly what my traders are going through. And I've traded everything, right? Options, Forex, futures,
I can
crypto. Like,
imagine. You
so when
double.
they tell me about their platform and the problem and what they're looking at, I know it's like, oh yeah, the delta, the implied volatility, strike price. I know what they're talking about, and it helps them, right? Because sometimes you just need a coach and a teacher who understands what you're talking about, what you're going through.
Mhm.
So yeah, my Instagram handle is mailing.ow. As you can see on my Zoom name right
Mhm.
there, it's just mailing.ow. And I have a website, mailingowcoaching.com.
Yeah, I will
And I
add
have
that
a
later
podcast,
on.
actually.
You
It's
have a
called Finding
podcast, yeah.
Freedom in the Hologram.
Finding
And
Freedom, a hologram. Say it again.
Finding Freedom in the Hologram. And it's like, there's 8 seasons. It's basically free coaching. Start from there.
And your podcast is where? Where can we find your podcast?
Anyway, from Podcast Addict, iTunes, Spotify, it's on all the platforms. Yeah.
You've taught us a lot today. I want to believe that the audience really learned and they asked their questions to you. Before I let you go, I am that host who give assignments, besides the questioning. I give assignment to my guests to bring a wise
Yeah.
word or a proverb to share. So let's hear what you have for us, if you have one.
how to be true to yourself, like attune to yourself, right? So you can still be true to yourself and still be respectful.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it feels hard, right? When you spoke about bringing shame to your family or whatever, but there is a way that you can be true to yourself and still be respectful. Because, you know, parents, elders, society place their expectations of you, but usually the decisions are made out of fear
Yeah.
rather than out of love.
Mm-hmm.
And in the end, you know yourself best, right? So even though your parents may know a lot about you, but in the end, you know what you're feeling, experiencing. So being true to yourself is important. You have to look at yourself in the mirror every day. You have to go to sleep at night, right? Be able to have a clear conscience. So really be true to yourself and make decisions out of love and love yourself for making that decision.
Mm.
That's all I would have to say.
Yes, be true to yourself. And you were true to yourself. So you left a job that wasn't really true to you. And you are in a place where you're more happy and you are in control of everything about mailing. Thank you so much. Thank you. Have a wonderful weekend, Mailing, and
Thank you
enjoy your
so much,
Saturday. I'm
Mabel.
going
It
to go
has
to
been
bed soon.
lovely.
I'll talk to you another time.
Yes.
Bye-bye.
All right.
And thank you, everyone
Bye-bye.
online, for your contributions. Thank you so much. Bye.
Yes, thank you.